perhaps was discussed in C program, but then I can assure you that some many other things perhaps you will not do as in the detail that we'll be doing today. So as Shiva says, basically perhaps he told me yesterday that I can take an extra class from 2 to 3. So the what I will try to do is I'll try to finish off all this miscellaneous stuff by today, and then from tomorrow we will go on to the actual data structures. So for the first one, so the first one perhaps you know, many of you know, and if you don't know, we will know it now. So first one is what is called as enumerations, or in short, they are called as enums. So what are these enumerations or enums are used for? So just a minute. So these enumerations are used mainly in for something as an as a replacement for hash defines. But there is a reason and there is a way in which it can be done. For example, let's say that I want to define. So we know that there is no true and false value in C language. In other languages, they have. In Pascal, we have true as a data as a keyword and false as a keyword. We don't have it in let's say C language. So what I can do is to have it, what I can say is hash define true is 1 and hash define false is 0. Okay. And then whenever I require true value, I can use true. So it becomes more readable, right? I mean, you can agree that this becomes more readable. For example, I can say that if some condition is true, or some function is returning true or something like that. So for example, I may say there might be a call to a function which returns true or false. So is, let's say, some element part of a database, and I can ask the question is part of, and the answer could be 1 or 0. But 1 or 0 can be captured as true or false basically. So I can say that what it is returning back, although it is returning back integer, essentially I'm capturing it as true. So I can always say that, let's say, C is equal to, or S is equal to is part of, and then there are some, let's say, parameters. And then what I can always do is if S is equal to 2, something like this. So actual value of S over here, although it is 1, I'm not using value 1 over here, and I'm using 2. And this is perhaps known, we had already discussed it as utility of hash define basically. But now see these two things. Okay, just look at that. Then let's imagine that I have another requirement, in which case perhaps I would require lot of things which are basically, let's say, months are required. Let's say I want to have an array of months, and rather array indexed by months, and maybe it gives production per month for a particular factory. So what typically I would do, you can imagine that I say that I will say that, let's say, so production is, let's say, an integer. So I would say int, let's say, prod, and months are 12. So typically the coding will look like this: int prod 12. Let's say that this prod has been, or let's say I want to assign the value. So I will say that prod 0 is equal to 100, prod 1 equal to 200, and likewise. Okay. Now the problem over here is that these statements don't clearly tell me that this is for January, this is for February, like that. I need to remember that, okay, January is first month, but the index starts from, okay. So one way in which I can do, I can solve this problem is by saying that hash define Jan is hash define Feb is 1, and likewise. Okay. So now what happens as a result of it? What will happen is that over here I can say that this is Jan, Okay, this is Feb and likewise. Okay. So now the code becomes more readable. Okay. So if you see these two things, okay, this hash defined true false 1 0, hash defined Jan 0, Feb 1, March 2, up to let's say the last one will be hash defined, let's say December 11. I mean, when you see this hash defines, what strikes you? Mapping from strings to integers, yes, but then that happens for any hash define, right? What else? So what is happening in hash define is that whenever it sees a string which is like this true, and it knows that this was defined as this string true with value 1 because it knows this mapping. So what Pulkit is what Prabhav is saying is, Sai is saying is correct, that it maps the strings to the integers. So of course this can be done. But this is a property of hash define. What else strikes you? We have to type hash define repeatedly. Okay, what does it mean? We are defining each and every item separately. Can we define it all at one time? But what does it give me? I mean, if I want to define all of them one time, do that basically. There's defines in my program. Why do you think that I should define them together? Answers we have. So we are defining each and every term separately. Can we define all at one time? So I said, what does it give me? To make array with string indices, yeah, that is a requirement, right? I mean, that is what I said. What when I said what does it give me, doesn't mean that. So essentially, this is my requirement that I actually makes things more readable. So making things more readable, replacing indices with strings is my requirement. What I'm asking is that can I so clearer, more readable code? Yes, that is the closest one, right path. So what we are saying over here is that we don't have to, for example, in my program, I have these true false and I also have this January to December. Doesn't mean that all of them need to be combined together. Rather, it is not possible also, because you see that this false is getting value 0 over here, true is getting value 1. Whereas in this case, January is getting value 0, February is getting value 1. So you can't combine all of them together. So the next best thing which I can do perhaps is that maybe can I combine these true and false together, because they seem to be of similar nature. And what is the nature? They are Boolean values, right? Similarly, can I combine this Jan to December together? They are of similar nature. What is the nature? The nature over here is they are names of the months, okay, and which perhaps I will be using as indices. But that I'm using it as indices is a different story. The fact is that they are all of similar nature. They being all of them being names of the months. And this facility of combining constants which are related to each other together, okay, this can be given by, or rather this is given by a key by keyword called as enum. Okay, for example, I can say enum boolean. Just a minute. So what is this type? This is of, I can say that this look like boolean values. These are months basically. So maybe I can combine them together by saying that this is enum boolean, and it takes two values. I will say it takes value false and it takes value true. Now I change the order over here, false and true, and there is a reason behind that. Okay, and perhaps you can guess the reason. And then I can say that I have another enum, which is enum months, and in which I can write Jan, Feb, March, like that. I'm not writing it now. You can write it, and the last one is December. And then I write like this. Now, two things have happened over here. First moment I do that, I don't require this. Okay, this is in lieu of that. Okay, so I can okay. So I can say that instead of doing this, what I am doing is I am defining enum boolean over here, and let's say that I'm writing here. Okay. Similarly, what I'm doing is instead of all these things together, I'm defining this enum months, and yeah, and then this January to December have been mentioned. Correct. So what is the second guess that you can make? Am I writing values over here? I mean, I'm writing false is 0, true is 1. I am not. I'm writing Jan equal to I am not. So can you make a guess what is happening over here? So just like array, enum allocates value starting from 0. Does array allocate value starting from 0? I mean, I have doubts on that. Okay. By default, assigning values start from 0 in order unless mentioned. Yes. So that is what it is. Essentially, what this means is that I am assigning value 0 to false and 1 to true, because by default it starts from 0, integer 0, and it just keeps on updating that. I mean, rather incrementing that. So the January becomes 0, February becomes 1, March becomes 2, and December becomes 11. Now, someone might say, and Onkar was very correct when he said that unless it is mentioned or unless it is changed. But this change is also possible. For example, tomorrow, let's say that this is not what I want. I mean, I have some other things which are with me. Let's say hash define. Let's say there are some things uh, uh, which are related, but they are not having values starting from 0. Then what do I do? Let's say that let's say I want the values of months to start from not 0 but from 1. Then one way in which I can do is basically I can put Jan equal to 1. Okay. Now what happens is Jan becomes 1, and then the remaining things start from that point onwards. Okay. Imagine that suppose for some reason I didn't want to write March, and I have directly April over here, and I want the names of the months or the values of the months to be retained. Then what is happening in this particular case is this becomes 1, this becomes 2, this has to become 4, but it will become naturally, it will become 3. So there is a break. So I can make this as 4 basically. And then from that point onwards, then I don't have to say anything for May, and then May will take value of 5, and then June will take value of 6, and likewise. So essentially you can specify, if you don't specify the values, then it will start from 0 and will increment it by 1. Or otherwise you have an option to specify some of the values so that other values will start from that point onwards. And in the worst case, you may have option to define all the values separately. It is like just bringing different hash defines together, so which might be related. Again, you get them together in enum only if they are related. Okay, otherwise you don't get into enum. This is not for random hash defines to be combined together. So for example, even if things are related, let's say that some, let's say this is some enum that I am defining, and then let's say that I have val1. So val1 I want to give as 10, val2 I want to give as 20. So even this, everything can be told separately, or anything can be specified separately. So this is also, this is the other extreme basically. This one thing is when you don't specify anything. Other extreme is you specify everything. So when you don't specify anything, then by default the values will start from zero, and it is useful because you see that the relation is that why they would have chosen zero, because they realize that many times this is going to be used for this kind of mapping in the in the array, and this is definitely useful. I mean, we don't have a way to use strings in as indices for the array, and many times we do require that. So maybe this is the way in which it can be done. Okay, so so this is the first part. Okay, so this enums is something which is very, very useful. Okay, so perhaps from this point onwards we are going to use enums wherever we can, and we'll use it. You will see that we'll use it typically. It looks nice. The second part which has happened over here, I don't know whether you have realized that this enum months actually is a type. So we just have defined another data type, just like we defined star. So this is user defined type. So user has just, or the programmer has just defined the type, okay, which is enum months. So if I require a variable of enum months type, okay, I can take that. What does it mean? I will show you. So it means that I require enum boolean, okay, and I require this value b basically, or value s. Let's say that this is b equal to is part of, and I want to check whether b is equal. So I want a variable of type enum. Okay. So otherwise I would define this b as integer. I want to say that it is enum only. Then it is possible for me, after I have done the declaration above, I can say that enum boolean b. Okay. So what has happened, just like in the case of structure, it remembered that this is a tag, and for that tag, these two values false and true are taken. And then by doing enum boolean b, what you are essentially saying is b can take the two values, either false or true. Okay. So not only, so you have defined this enum boolean as a type now, and now you are assigning a variable of this type as well. Okay. So this is possible. And this is what mostly, this is how the booleans, unless they are indices in the array, they typically they get used like this, where you actually define variables of type enums. And we'll later on we will see a little bit better way of doing that, but this is the primary way in which we can do this. Okay. And does it enforce, for example, one question which comes is that, does the language enforce that this b should take only value 0 or 1 as integer, or rather what is happening is that this b is of type enum, but this is part of function. Now this is part of function is declaration can also change, by the way, let me tell you. So this is part of function can return back enum boolean instead of returning integer. So this is a proper type. I mean, which can be passed, which can be returned back, and likewise. So essentially, it is to say that is part of function is returning back a enum boolean and not integer, which means that is part of function is supposed to return back only value true or false, okay, and not anything else. No, unfortunately, so this is for understanding. So the best way in which I can write this is part of function. Let's see if I want to write it, will be something like this, that later on, suppose I write this function, it will look, let's say there is some this thing over here, and perhaps I will take return type rate val is equal to rate val is of type enum boolean. So I will say that enum boolean rate val, and then perhaps over here I can say return, I can set some value, either rate val is equal to true, and in some other cases basically I may put the values as rate val is equal to false. Okay. So And then perhaps I can return back red file somewhere over here. So understand that this is under some if else condition. Some if else condition this is true, some if else condition this is false. And then perhaps I can do return red file. Okay. So essentially this is to say that this function is returning back booleans now. Okay. And not it is not returning back integers. Okay. Which could have been anything else. Unfortunately, but then this is what is a good programming practice, that when you write enum boolean over here, make sure that only those values which are given in the part of boolean enum boolean are taken up over here, which is true or false. What if you take some other value over here? Let's say that instead of this red value equal to true, if you do 10, then what will happen? Now if you are using C++ compiler, then in that case, this will turn out to be an error. Okay, because C++ compiler considers enum boolean as a very strict type. Okay, a C compiler is little bit lenient. It says that okay, I will not check it. It is programmer's responsibility. So even if you say red value equal to 10, it is not going to do that check anytime, essentially. Okay. Only perhaps the thing will fail is that when it goes over here, that B is not equal to true in that case, or rather if you do this 10, it is not in the part of the set of the values, right? I mean, that's where it will fail. But it will not lead to any compilation kind of error. Whereas if you use C++ compiler, it is a more strict compiler and it considers enum boolean as a type itself. Okay, and then it actually checks whether the names that you are using for this or whatever you are initializing to or assigning to this B of type enum boolean B, whether it is part of this set basically, or rather the set above, whether it is part of that set. Where did it go? Okay, so I think I just removed it. So no, here. So whether it is part of this set, false or true or not. So that is checked by C++ compiler, but not by the C compiler. Okay. So, but then that doesn't mean that we should be relaxed. I mean, we should relax. Rather, it is a good program practice. If you are taking enum boolean as a type, then it is a programmer's responsibility to make sure that whatever values are assigned to this enum boolean B are actually part of the values of that set. And if they are not, Max it will do is it will, if you use some value which is true one or something which is not defined, it will creep about it. But if you assign it to some other integer, it will, the C compiler, the classic C compiler will still take it. So it is programmer's responsibility to make sure that they use the values appropriately. Okay, the C++ will catch it. So that is the other thing. So this is, but if you follow all the rules properly, then essentially this is a very beautiful way of doing the programming, because then in that case the meanings are pretty clear. Rather than imagine that rather than doing that, I'm returning 0 or 1 over here, it doesn't tell me anything, right? I mean, I'm returning integer and I'm returning 0 or 1. Although myself, I know that this is a true or false, it is not a very good way of doing things. So now things become very nice. And even if you might say that hash defined true, false, you could have done, but then this still remains integer in that case. Now I can say that it is of only specific values I require. So you are conveying more information to the other programmer, because when there is an error, they could check that whether you use some value which is beyond this set or not in set, and then the errors can be caught. So this is essentially a very powerful way of and very nice way of doing the program. So so can we keep a gap in indexes like 3 will be missing in the case given? Yes, we can do that. Okay. So what are the comments now that you have written? So yeah. So Mihir asked, can we keep the gap? I think I explained that and I showed you that gap can be kept. For using it in function, does enum have to be declared globally? Yes. So you have an option that you can declare enum anywhere basically, just like for the structure. It is rules are same for the structure. If structure declaration you do inside the function, you'll be able to use only inside the function, that structure definition. But typically we do structure definitions outside of all the functions so that all functions can use that. And ideally the same thing has to be done by enum. Why? Because again, remember, what are we replacing enum for? We're replacing enum for a series of hash defines, right? And if we have series of hash defines, where do we have written hash defines? You would have written outside of all the functions. So same argument I will hold, and I will say that enums have to be declared outside of all the functions. Okay, fine. So I think any other doubt? So we are done with enums. Unless if there is, so we'll take a break of. I mean, break in the sense I will just stop for 1 or 2 minutes. And I will check with if you have some doubts on this. Okay, no doubt. We'll proceed ahead. Okay. So the next thing that we will take is what is called as macros. And although we have done it, macros are again hash defines basically. And although we have done the hash defines, we'll see these hash defines more closely now. So enums are replacement for hash defines, and these macros are extension of hash defines. Rather, they do many more things than we can actually imagine. Okay, so we'll see what these things are all about. Fine. So we already know that hash define helps us, and we have done it multiple times. That typically we'll use size or something like that. So we'll say that hash define size is 10 is how typically we'll use it. And we know that whenever the word size appears, it will be textually replaced by value 10, which means that if I make some mistake like 1a over here, and if I use later on int, let's say int a, and I use size, it will creep at the compilation of this location, not here, because here it assumes that it has to blindly replace whatever is this replacement string is whenever it sees this word size. Okay, so it will, so you can imagine that what the preprocessor is doing is it is replacing it with 1a, and then compiler cannot compile this line, and it removes actually this line after after preprocessing is done. So compiler will creep at this line. Okay, it will not creep over here, that mistake is over here. Okay, so the way to understand that is if it is creeping over here, because here if you see int a size, there is nothing wrong over here. So when I realize that this mistake perhaps could be because of the size declaration, and then you have to check this. So this is the basic rule anyhow. The good thing, and the second part I said is typically we use capital letter words for these are called as macros now. Now the size, the words size actually is called as a macro. So these macros are typically defined by using all caps. Is that a thing mandatory by the language? No. You can use small cap letters also, but moment you use small cap letters, we ourselves become confused because typically we use small cap letters for our variable declarations. So it is an unsaid rule that the variables have to be written in small caps, and macros are to be written in all in the capital letters. Uh, uh, so or the higher letters. So now this is not the only use or replace for this replacement. So perhaps Cunningham and Ritchie thought that what are we doing over here? We are saying hash define, which is the keyword. Then we are having a name of the macro, and then whatever appears after this, basically we are just replacing this word with whatever appears after this. So it is being said that the declaration of hash define is goes hash define is the keyword, and then I will say macro name, and then I have basically replacement string. This is the grammar, or this is the format. Okay, this is not, I'm not defining any macro over here. I'm just showing you what is the rule of defining a macro. So if just to distinguish, let me do this. So essentially the first word which comes is the actual macro name, and after that what we have is a replacement string. So Cunningham and Ritchie thought that if that is the case, and this replacement string, what is the length of the replacement string? It is the next word. So they said actually it is not. I mean, in this particular case, when I am defining values, it is typically going to be just one single word or one single string basically over here. But they didn't put that condition. What it means is that whatever appears after this macro name, which is a single word by the way, whatever appears after that is complete thing is the replacement string for this macro name. Okay, and I can so it could be made up of many different words also. Okay, and all of those things together essentially to be they can be put in place of this macro name. Okay, so so and how do I know that replacement string is over? Typically the end of line is considered as replacement string is over, unless there is a exception, and which I will describe. So this can be exploited now. Okay, so the way this can be exploited is that, imagine, although this is not a very good thing, but and I say that this we never should write, but let's say that I want to write an infinite loop. Okay, so one way in which I can write infinite loop is, of course, I can write infinite loop by we all know that for I can say no assignment could be there, but no condition and nothing over here. This is a classic infinite loop which I can write. Okay, and perhaps there will be some statements over here. Okay, some set of statements. So what perhaps can also I do is that I can, instead of doing this, I can say I can give a name to this infinite loop. I will say the name of this infinite loop is forever. Okay, and then I will say that this has to be replaced by this. Okay, if I do this, then I can say that what I can write this loop is like this. Okay, so what have we just done? What we have just done is we have said that in hash define, what the second part is not actually a value, which the typically that is the way we are using the macros, and that is the only, and let me tell you, that is typically the only way we require to use it most of our assignments or most of our programs. But as you go ahead, and you will see that people are using it in multiple ways. So one way is they do a little bit more than just assigning it for a value. So for example, in this particular case, this whole string, which stands for an infinite loop, is being given a name called as forever. Okay, and this forever I am using wherever I want to use this infinite. Okay, so this is possible. I'm not saying this has to be done. Rather, I have told you that infinite loops have not to be used. So this is just for illustration that I'm doing. Okay. So this is first. This is the first thing that we need to realize. The second thing, let's say, so we will show it one by one. Let's imagine the condition where this this conditional statement that we have taken. We had seen in the last semester. What is the conditional statement? I said that if I have some integer I, or let's say integer a, or let's say whatever I, and I want to check whether I want to assign the greater of a and b. So I can do that by saying, is a greater than b? Is a greater than b? Question mark. And if the answer is yes, then in that case, please assign value of a, otherwise assign value of b. Okay, you remember this particular conditional, this was in lieu of this statement, right? If a greater than b, then in that case I will say I is equal to a, else I is equal to b. So whatever basically this statement, we said that this statement can be written in short form by this conditional statement. Okay, here the requirement was that you have a condition, and then same variable which is I, which gets updated in either if or else. There is one single assignment over there, and the value is either this or that. Now it need not be one of these two. You could have expression 1 and expression 2 also over here, some other expressions, but in this case I have chosen only single. So there is nothing nothing compulsory on the right hand side, but what is compulsory on the left hand side is that it is an assignment statement, and left hand, and it is assigning to the same variable, and only assignments are there. Then you can write this as a short form, correct? So this we had already done in one of the lectures. Now what I can do with macros is that so for example, I may require such conditionals many times over, right? So can I do this through macro is the question. Okay, so perhaps this hash define size is the simplest one, right? So perhaps I had to write it earlier. So another thing which I can do with macro is that I can write a complex statement. Okay, or rather I can write something which looks like a function. So in this case, basically I want a macro which is whose name is max, which finds out max between a and b. So macros are allowed to take looks like that they can take parameters, although we can argue whether they are really parameters or not. So for example, if I want to define max of a comma b, okay, this max of a comma b can be defined by saying essentially that whether A is, and I'm going to make some modifications later on, whether I can define this by A greater than B. Is this the case? If that is the case, then answer is A. Otherwise, answer is B. Okay, this is a replacement string. So what will happen with this is that whenever, so instead of this statement, I can write a statement which says I is equal to max of A comma B. Is this a function? The answer is no. Remember hash define, when I did hash define size 10, this was not a variable declaration. It never kept space for size. Okay, it's a replacement string. Similarly, this max AB is not a function. It's a macro. Okay, and what this macro is doing, because macros are allowed to take inputs. Okay, like this. So what it does is it looks into this max. Okay, it says max is a macro. Okay, then it realizes that max is a macro. Okay, and then it checks basically the format. It checks the format. It says open bracket A comma B. Now these are the names of the specific variables. So what it does is it goes back and it replaces this replacement string. In the replacement string, it replaces this capital A with small a and capital B with small b. And everywhere it does it. So essentially after it does it, what I actually get is this statement. So after preprocessor replaces this A and B in the macro definition, the statement actually I get after preprocessing is over is actually this, which is what I want. Okay. So so over here, and if A and B is a little bit confusing, let's say that I want to do X and Y, then things become perhaps more clear. Essentially, it just replaces variable X and variable Y. So I have this X greater than Y, and either it is X or Y. And perhaps this is what originally I required. If X greater than Y, I wanted I is equal to X and I is equal to Y in this case. Okay. So this is possible. So that I can write a macro which looks like a function, but then I can use it basically like this. This right hand side is little bit longer than a single value, and then I can use it as it is, and it can actually parameterize it in the sense that it takes this A and B as parameters, and whatever I pass X and Y, it places A with X and B with Y, and then what I get is what I want. Okay, so this is possible. This is number 2. Okay. But there are some cares that we need to take. For example, another macro which I can define, which looks very correct, is that let's say square. So I can say that hash define sqr of x, let's say sqr of capital X is equal to x cross x. Okay. There is nothing, it doesn't look like wrong, right? It looks very correct. That is the definition I will like to give, and perhaps at some point I will like to make I is equal to sqr, and to that I want to pass perhaps value z or variable z. So what I expect is that what it will do is it will replace this statement with I equal to z cross z. Why it will do that? Because it will check that in the sqr x cross x, it checks that this x has to be replaced by z, and z cross z is a replacement string, x cross x is a replacement, so it will replace it with z cross z. Correct? So this is what I expect. But there is a problem, a small problem over here. And the problem is that if I give, instead of z, if I give sqr, let's say z plus 1, then what is going to happen? What do you think will happen? Yeah, so Gaurav did the nice thing. He said that he didn't comment that whether it calculates the things correctly. He said that I will just replace it blindly, and then what I should get is that by replacing blindly, I should get z plus 1 cross z plus 1. Okay. This is what should happen, right? Because SQR of X was given and X cross X. So it is blind replacement. Every X is going to get replaced by Z plus 1. So this is what I get. And this is the actual statement which C language gets for comparison as well as for execution. Do you think this is correct? Is it calculating the square value correctly for Z plus 1? No, because what it is calculating is this is nothing but z plus z plus 1. So it is essentially it is calculating value of 2z plus 1 and not z square. Z square plus 2z plus 1, not that. Okay, so it is 2z plus 1. So how do I stop this? Okay, so what was the problem? The problem was this z plus 1 where it was kept open, and this multiplication basically worked with one part of earlier this thing expression and one part of the later expression. So maybe I have to put brackets, but where do I put brackets? Do you think I should put brackets over here around z plus 1, or I need to put brackets around x? The sqr z plus 1, it doesn't help much. I mean it looks very unnatural, let me tell you. So better is basically is that the real problem happened is over here. So I should say that this x is one expression. Okay, and this expression I want to separate out by doing the multiplication. So this putting brackets around x is much better way. And now what will happen is that over here, instead of this, basically now if I call this will get, so here it is square of z plus 1 still, because it's I'm giving one single value or expression. And then over here, it basically now puts bracket like this, and now things are calculated correctly. And that is the reason that one should be very careful for everything that we pass is an expression over here. So even in this case, x comma y what I'm passing, they could be expressions. Okay, they need not be values. So they could be expressions. So I need to be very careful. So typically it is a habit that every expression has to be put brackets around. Okay, and if I take that view that earlier max a comma b, I had to actually change it to put brackets. Okay, so these brackets are very important. There is a problem with this max, and that we need to be careful. Okay, or with such kind of things. And there is a what we call this. There is another, even after I do this, there is another issue. What if I do this? Let's say that I say that I is equal to max of something which we should not do, j plus plus and k plus plus. If I do this, I always told you that this plus plus operator has to be used only for simple stuff where you want to just increment value j equal to j plus 1 and nothing else, nowhere else. But now there are some intelligent people, basically, let's say, who think that why they should not use this. So my first question is, what are they trying to do? And my second question is, what will happen in this case? What is the intention? First find out the intention. What is the intention of the programmer over here? Okay, what could be the intention of the programmer, and what will actually happen, and what is the problem? You want to check what max was? I think it was easy. It is written in front of you. It is x greater than y. Find max j and k, and oh yeah, that is the intention, as Vishaka says, that you first find out max of j and k, and then you increment the j and k both. That was the intention. Is that what is going to happen? So what will happen? So to know what will happen, you have to just blindly replace the stuff. So what is going to happen is, I'm going to say over here, both j and k will be incremented twice is what Nitin says. Nitin, you need to just think over your answer once again. What is going to happen over here is that if j plus plus is greater than k plus plus, if that is the case, then the answer is j plus plus. Okay, I have to write question mark over here. Otherwise, my answer is k plus plus. Okay. So you have to be careful. I'm not getting the correct answer. So I think Mir is also not correct. So what is going to happen over here? There are multiple things which can happen. Okay, out of which the one should be and another thing which we are not sure. So firstly, we don't know this expression j is greater than k plus plus. Typically, the expectation that and values of k would be compared, and then only j and k would be incremented. Okay, this first thing which we expect. Let's say that that is how it happens. Okay, that j and k are compared, and and after that, just after this comparison is over, one of them, both of them are incremented. Okay, and then what you do is you assign the value of j plus. Let's say j is larger, then you assign the value of j, and then you do plus plus. Otherwise, you assign the value of k and then you do plus plus. So, what is the problem over here? Firstly, is the answer correct? Let's check whether it calculates the correct answer. Forget about what happens to j and k. Is the answer correct? This is the first question. Why answer is not correct? Vishaka says answer is not correct. Why answer is not correct? Answer is not correct because remember that just after this comparison, values of j and k have been incremented. So what happens is, even if j was larger than k, the actual value that you are going to assign now is the incremented value of j, because it got incremented after this expression. Okay, and then j will be incremented again. Okay, and the same thing will happen in case of k also. If k was larger or equal, then in that particular case, value of the incremented value of k will be assigned to I and not the original value of k, and then k will be incremented again. So what is happening is that the assigned value is wrong because it is one more than the actual value that it should get assigned, number one. And number two, the max value gets incremented twice. Okay, so these are the two things which are happening. The assigned value is wrong. It is one more than the original value because this is how because after this comparison maybe it will get incremented. And number two, the max value comes again over here, and again it does one more incrementation here or here, and that's why the max value, whichever is the max of the two, that will get incremented twice. Now don't pick me up on the equality condition. Let me tell you. I mean, we understand what I'm speaking about. The equality condition is taken care of similar to when k is larger. Okay, so so over there, so essentially the answer is not correct, and one of the values get incremented twice. Okay, so that is, so both things are problems. So in short, and I'm stopping over here. In short, what it means is we should not use basically such kind of statements which are essentially leads to what are called as side effects. And that's what I told you many times, that this plus plus this kind of things where there are side effects are not to be used in conjunction of lot of other things. Okay, so all those funny business basically we have to stop. Okay, although it is possible you can ask this question, what happens in this case, but that is only utility of it. Don't try to do it, and I would not be asking any such question. But remember that you should not be using that as well. Otherwise, you will lead to issue. You will learn, whether you will get into problems which are very difficult to surmount. Okay, so I think it's already the time. If you have any questions, you can put on the chat box. We'll stop now, and we'll meet again at 2 o'clock to take things from this point onwards. Thank you.